Hello Whisky fans, welcome back. It's time for a re-review. Why a re-review? Well, because I bought myself another bottle of Smokehead, the 43% standard version. I really like it. I think that it's great value. I think that it's worth talking about. It has some great flavours. It's just about punchy enough at 43%, and at 43%, I think that it kind of provides the experience and the intensity that we should be getting from the 40% Laphroaig 10-year-old, but that they refuse to give us. But another reason for this re-review is because something is changing with Smokehead, and we'll get to that later. So the details on the label for this one: Smokehead Islay Single Malt Scotch Whisky. It is a single malt, it's not a blend or anything like that. It's produced by Ian MacLeod Distillers. It's bottled at 43%. It has no age statement. It doesn't mention anything about non-chill filtration or colouring. In my opinion, I think that this is chill filtered, and if you have a look on Whisky Base, it says that this is uncoloured. I'm not sure if I believe that. I don't know where they've got that from, but I think the colour of this, it does look like it probably has got some colouring in it. But in my opinion, Smokehead, as then as it is now, it's a really fun, dependable, characterful little Islay single malt. So let's get some in the glass and see if anything's changed. You can probably see that I haven't got much left of this one. So Smokehead Islay Single Malt Mystery Malt Scotch Whisky on the nose. Quite a dry, dirty, aggressive peat in my opinion. Slightly ashy. I always think that it's got that very sweet, sort of peated, vanilla, sweet, rounded, warming peat that you always get on a Laphroaig. But saying that, I think that in a way it's more interesting than what you get from a Laphroaig 10, especially because here in the UK they water it down to the bare minimum strength, which really destroys it. But with this Smokehead, I think that you're getting a nice fruitiness that you don't get on the basic entry-level Laphroaigs, with some nice salty orange notes, as well as some chocolatiness. But that's not to say that it's not got that punchy, industrial, dirty peatiness that we all love, because on the nose you're also getting lots of notes of things like tarred ropes, oily fattiness, smoked ham, maybe smoked fish like smoked kippers. So lots of character, nice and punchy, nice and complex. It's the dirty side of Islay that probably most of us love. Let's see how it tastes. So on the palate, one of the flavours I always pick out that you can taste in this one is barbecue and wood smoke. And it's a slightly spicy wood smoke, kind of reminds me of mesquite barbecue, which I think is really interesting. It's got this really dense, woody, spicy note coming through, probably from the casks, that I really love. It's also more of that vanilla and caramel peat. A fair medicinal side, so things like bandages and antiseptic. But it's definitely not a one-dimensional peat bomb. Some really nice chocolatey, orangey malt notes coming through as well. As for the finish, I'm going to go with medium long, with lots of vanilla peat and more of that salty smoked fish note coming through. So when I first got this new bottle of Smokehead, I did wonder if there'd been some changes, to the point where when I first tried this, first opened it and had the sort of like the neck pour of this bottle, I did wonder if they'd maybe even started sourcing this from a different distillery. But on second thoughts, after I've spent some more time with this bottle, I think that it's just that there's a greater emphasis on that fatty, oily, tarry, slightly industrial side of this whisky than there was before. And I think that it's the change that I saw to start with is probably just down to a little bit of minor batch variation. One of the things that a lot of people talk about online when you look at this whisky is a lot of people say that it's sourced from a distillery on Islay by Ian MacLeod and then finished in peated whisky casks from a different distillery. Me personally, I think that this is probably Caol Ila, and I think that it almost certainly still is Caol Ila. I did wonder to start with if maybe they'd been using some, if they are doing that, if they'd been using some different casks for the finishing. That would possibly explain the emphasis on those tarry, oily notes. But all in all, I think that it's still that great level of quality that we always had from Smokehead. It's slightly different, but still great. So as for a grade for this one, I think last time I reviewed this, I think I gave this an A-. So was I over enthusiastic with that A-? I think possibly slightly. The thing is, Smokehead is a whiskey that the profile really appeals to me. I think it's a fantastic whiskey that I'll buy again and again unless things go downhill or the price creeps up. This is one that I'll always try to have on my shelf. But I do think that I was perhaps being a little bit over enthusiastic with the A-, but I still think this is a solid B+ whiskey. I think that it probably should have been a B+ when I reviewed it the first time, and I think it's still a B+ now. Now, come to the other reason why I'm re-reviewing this whiskey, and that is because something does appear to be changing with Smokehead. I was in the supermarket in a well-known supermarket chain in the UK the other day, and I saw that they had Smokehead, which is great because they don't always have it, so it's nice to see. And I noticed that it's now in a cardboard box rather than the metal tin that this often used to come in, which is fine. It's good even in a way because cardboard is more easily recyclable than the tins, which, although they can obviously be recycled if you're putting it in your household recycling rather than taking it directly to the scrap man, it's probably going to end up landfilled. So the change to a cardboard box is far from a bad thing. I also noticed that this supermarket that had Smokehead, it was on special offer, so even better. But just as I was reaching to pick it up, I noticed that there'd been something else change about this, and I'll show a photo on screen that I took of this whiskey on the shelf, and you can see if you can spot it. Yeah, that's right, the ABV is dropped right down to 40%. So most of you are going to know that usually, over the last few years, Smokehead has been presented at 43%. So some distilleries will actually have the nerve to tell you that 40% ABV whiskey is actually what the UK market prefers, and that's why they bottle a lot of their whiskies at 40% ABV. And of course, us malt enthusiasts, we know that the real reason is corner cutting to save money. It means that you get less spirit in each bottle and more water, and as good as Scottish spring water is, if that's even what they're using, we'd really rather have more whiskey. Also, and especially here in the UK, it means that the rate of duty they pay, because duty is quite often in a lot of countries tied to the amount of raw ethanol in the bottle, is substantially less per bottle. So it means that they end up paying less tax. And sadly, I have to say that here in the UK, where the rate of duty per litre of raw alcohol in the bottle is higher than it is in some other countries, for example like America, it makes a lot more difference to the balance spreadsheet here in the UK compared to America, which is probably why you see a lot of whiskies like things like Lafroig and a lot of your blends bottled at 43% in America and only 40% here in the UK. I do wonder how much this change in Smokehead from 43% down to 40% is down to the supermarkets. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I was getting at with my comment on Ralphie's video that he mentioned in one of his extras. It may be that because Smokehead is now essentially in this deal with the devil situation in supplying supermarkets, that they're being encouraged to squeeze their margins, being pressured by the supermarkets to accept price cuts to take a chunk out of the producer's margin in order to offer those special offers at the till. Especially seeing as we are seeing fairly frequent special offers with Smokehead. And while that might be fine for someone like Glenlivet, who is already a company that makes their money with narrow margins on the volume, for someone that's smaller, like Ian MacLeod, who obviously previously offered a semi-craft presentation, that's probably a much more harmful thing. It's exactly the kind of toxic relationship between the producers and the supermarkets that we don't want. Fingers crossed that this new 40% of Smokehead might just be a supermarket exclusive, maybe because they're trying to pressure Smokehead to produce something at a lower cost so they can put these special offers out. Maybe it'll only ever be available at that weaker strength in the supermarkets. And when we buy our Smokehead from the online retailers or the specialist spirit shops, we'll continue to get the 43%. Time will tell. So you might be wondering, the obvious question is, how does the 40% version compare to the old 43%? Well, I've got no idea because I won't be buying it. I think that 43% is, I probably speak for a fair majority of whiskey drinkers when I say that I think 43% is often just about enough to carry the flavours of a whiskey, but I think that 40% is just a step too far. As they say, I'm going to be voting with my wallet on this one. Unless I can get a sample from someone, then I'm not going to be giving any of my time or money for the weaker version of this Smokehead that's come out, because it doesn't deserve it. I do think that we need to go a step further than this though. Voting with your wallet is great, it's all well and good, but I'd also encourage you to go further, and this is what I've done on this one. Whenever you're disappointed with a distillery or an independent bottler, it's a really good idea to tell them and make them aware, especially when it's a company that has previously offered a good presentation and they have a good relation with the customers. Now, you don't have to get angry, it's best if you don't. Just pop them an email or maybe even pick up the phone and tell them that you're a long-term customer, you've enjoyed their products in the past, but you're not happy with whatever change they've made, and you won't be buying their products in future because you're not happy. Simple as. You have to remember that as good as voting with your wallet is, if a producer notices that their products are not selling and they don't realise why, then more likely than not they're just going to kill that product line rather than fixing it, and then nobody wins. If you're interested, I did send an email with my thoughts and feelings on this and with questions as well to Ian McLeod, the people that make Smokehead, and they haven't replied yet. It's been a couple of weeks and I still haven't had an answer, which, to be fair to them, the people that are answering the phones and the emails, is probably most likely because this is a decision that's been made high up based on the spreadsheets and the balance books, and there's just no good answer for why they've done what they've done here. But at least I've made them aware, and hopefully that'll actually get through to someone that listens, and hopefully if enough other people have the same feelings and they make them aware, hopefully that counts for something. So yeah, that's brilliant. It's another whiskey that I've really liked and enjoyed for a long time, which they've made, well, I was going to say a little bit worse, but quite a lot worse, I imagine, dropping it down to 40%. In an age when most new distilleries are coming out with full craft presentations and more Scotch brands are switching over to a craft presentation in the interests of flavour and giving the more discerning customers what they want, it's another whiskey which has gone completely the other way. On top of that, it's incredibly bloody hot here in the UK. We've got a drought across most of the country and everything's going brown. Is there any good news out there? Is good news still a thing that they do? We don't seem to get much anymore. I would say though that if Ian McLeod and Smokehead decided to release a new 46% version of Smokehead, that would probably be some good news, wouldn't it? See you next time.